we must complete these tasks and get this many customers or we will die. So we had to do twice as much work with a third as many people. And it was more fun. I didn't want to write down esoteric values. I wanted to write down behaviors. We're going to give you enough freedom to be responsible enough to do the right thing. People just did it. And they did it joyfully.
Hello, Patty. Thank you so much for being here to share your insight and wisdom with us.
Of course.
Yeah, so as you know already that we admire very much the work you have done and particularly you have achieved for Netflix. So we would like to learn more about that. So how do you do that? Basically, I think we will talk more first about the work you have done in Netflix. It's probably more Netflix focused, but we will also move more broadly later in the second part of the conversation. Great. I think that when people start to get acquainted or start to think about Netflix culture, when they learn about Netflix culture, the two big things coming out is freedom and responsibility.
Yes.
And this seems to sometimes make people puzzled. So how can it work? How can we?
Well, let me give you a little bit of the evolution to that. Reed Hastings, who was the CEO of Netflix at the time, and I had worked together at another company. And we had grown that company through merger and acquisition. And so when we were 100 people, then 200, then 400, then 800. And it was his first time as a CEO, and it was my first time as an HR person. And so what we did was we would take our employee handbook and their employee handbook, and we'd smash it together and have a bigger employee handbook until it got bigger and bigger and bigger. More and more policies, more and more things to do. And so when he asked me to come to Netflix, part of the lure was to create a different kind of company. And how we started to do that was we promised each other we would write things down. So the first thing we wrote down was a series of descriptions of behaviors that we wanted to see in our colleagues. I wanted you to be honest with me. I wanted you to be reliable. I wanted you to operate with integrity. And those are, and what I did was I didn't want to write down esoteric values. I wanted to write down behaviors. If I want to be able to see you do that. I don't want you to aspire to have integrity, right? I want you to show me that. So that's the first thing we wrote down. And then we had a layoff at the company. We lost a bunch of employees. We thought the company was going to be over. It didn't happen. I mean, we did the layoff, but the company didn't die. And we survived. And what happened was, that was in the DVD by mail business, we had to keep going, and in order to keep going, we were very capital intensive, so we had to buy more DVDs and stamps and envelopes, so we had to do twice as much work with a third as many people. And it was more fun. And we were like, Reed and I were driving to work, and he said, I'm having the most fun I've ever had. And I said, me too. And he goes, go find out why. Right? That was my mission, go find out why. And I started talking to everybody, and what I found out was we had said goodbye to a lot of the middle management. We had grown enough where we thought that we should have like supervisors and managers and directors, and we'd say goodbye to all those folks because we couldn't afford them. And we clearly focused on one thing that would help the company survive, so that the objectives, and it wasn't esoteric vision. It's like, we must complete these tasks and get this many customers or we will die. It wasn't like, or we won't be a great company, or we won't grow as much, or we won't have, it's like, or death. And what happened was, when we had the right people with the right skills in the right place, without very much approvals or people that you had to go to in order to do something, because we were time constrained, people just did it. And they did it joyfully, right? And when they needed to find out something from a colleague in another department, they just went and asked them. Now, to be fair, it was small. Right. And you really could do that, and everybody was at work, so it's not completely duplicatable. But what we realized was that what we had, when we had the right, we called it high performance teams. We also coined the term talent density. So when we had like vast majority of the people were extraordinarily good at what they did, and what they did was really important, then we got a lot done. And so we started, Reed and I started talking about, he's like, I think the next thing we should write down is that we want people to be free. We want them to be free to make all their own decisions and free to do whatever they want. And I said, I'm not sure that's true. Because we don't really want them to do anything they want, and we really don't want no constraints. I mean, I'm a big, you and I have talked about this, I don't like policies and I don't like procedures, but I do like discipline. And so when we started talking about that, we said, oh, there's the other side of that freedom coin, and that's responsibility.
Okay, wow.
Right, and so that's where those two things came from, which is, in some ways, it's kind of a scary thing. We're going to give you enough freedom to be responsible enough to do the right thing, right? So sometimes complete freedom means you can do whatever you want, whether it's right or not. Responsibility means I'm going to do the right thing on behalf of the customer and work that back, right? On behalf of the customer, which means it's going to be behalf of my colleagues, and going to be behalf of the work that we need to get done. So that's where that came from.